Let's do this.
Hey, welcome to NWA and Beyond, your real estate podcast. So we're lucky today, have my good friend, business partner, mentor, all those things, Philip Taldo. So Philip, welcome to the pod. Thanks for sitting down and doing this with us today.
Thank you, guys. I needed a break.
Well, perfect. Well, hey, PT, so what we want to do is just kind of go through and visit about you, kind of talk about your story, about your before real estate life, your real estate life, your business interest, all that sort of thing. So let's start off and just kind of talk about where you're from, how you grew up, and then how you got the real estate business. So you're one of the few locals in Northwest Arkansas.
Well, that I am. I was born technically in Fayetteville at the old city hospital. That was the only hospital they had around here in 1950. But I actually grew up in Tontitown. My mom and dad were both Tontitown people. My grandparents were all Tontitown people. And that just happens to be where I landed.
That's awesome. So you grew up in Tontitown, and then what did you do before you got in this real estate business?
Well, I went to Springdale High School, had kind of a good time playing football there, and then I moved on to the University of Arkansas, and not playing football.
Pre-NIL.
Yeah, that's right. And anyway, so I just worked my way around doing labor stuff on the farm, worked for a gas station, pumping gas, changing tires, hauling hay at night, all that fun stuff.
Good life growing up in Tontitown.
Good life.
But
yeah.
you played under Coach Williams?
Coach Gerald Williams, yes.
Yeah.
He was,
What was that like?
you know what? It wasn't till the second half of my senior year that I ever saw him smile. That's the truth.
Was he a disciplined guy?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, he was. I mean, you didn't mess around with him.
If you lost, you were running lines at night.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I've heard all the stories about that. So then, how'd you get in the real estate business? So what got you to take off into getting your license and all that sort of thing?
Well, something got into me a couple years after I got married, and I decided to get in the restaurant business. So that was about 1974, and I built a little kind of Dairy Queen type thing out at Tontitown.
Is it still there today?
Well, yes and no. There's still the building's still there, but it's now Mama Z's.
Oh, yeah.
So if you know where Mama Z's is, that's the place. And I learned how to fry hamburgers and make milkshakes and chili dogs and all that good stuff. But after 3 or 4 years, I got bored staying inside all the time. And I thought, man, I need to find something that I'm not dependent on somebody walking through that door over there to whether I make a living or not. I need something where I can go out and get the people. So I kept my eyes open. About that time, my wife decided that we needed a new house, and she was out looking. She called me one day and said, "Here, I want you to look at this house." And so I took off and went and looked at it with a real estate agent, and we were coming back, and I said, how do you get in this business? I think I'd like to do this. This looks like something I want to do. And she said, well, I've got some books at the office, and I'll give them to you, and then you read them up and take the test. So that's kind of what I did. And got in the business. That was about 1978.
It's good. So where did you start your career at? So where did you hang your license and get going? And what was I think something that's always interesting to people when they hear about people that have been in real estate for a long time, they're like, how did you start? Like, what was your first year like? What was your first couple of years getting off the ground and figuring it out, knowing that, all right, I got this restaurant, now I'm gonna get my license. Now how do you get to where you're the Philip Taldo of today?
Well, I got my license because I knew I had to have that, and within a couple of months, this fella came in, one of my customers, and said, "Are you ever interested in selling this?" He said, "I got my son that lives in Fort Smith, and I'd like to get him. He run the Pizza Hut down there, and I'd like to get him up here close to home. And are you interested in selling it?" And I said, "Come on back here, buddy."
Let me introduce you to this fry machine.
Yeah. So anyway, we've within a couple of weeks we had the deal made, and within a month he took it over, and so my license, that agent I was telling you about that gave me the books, well, she's the only real estate agent I knew then.
Yeah.
I didn't know any others, So I asked her, I said, "Where do I go to work at?" And she said, "Well, you come over to my place." Or it wasn't her place, where she worked.
Right.
And I felt comfortable with her, and that's what I did. And, that was the right thing to do. It was a smooth takeoff.
Absolutely. So then when did you and Gary get together, and when did y'all become business partners, and how did all that stuff work?
Well, I've been in the business a couple of years, and things were. I was always kind of an adventurer, and I'll say, I got into business and worked at Sunset Realty for a year and a half or 2 years, and then I knew this. I ran into this old guy that had a real estate company, and he was going to retire, and I said, "Would you sell it to me and carry it?" And he said, "Sure," and he did. And so I bought it, and so I did that for a year or so, and that's when we had the big interest rate crash deal. When Jimmy Carter was president, and it was
rates were
18
16,
and 20,
18,
20%. And there I was. I'd only been in the business 2 or 3 years, and I owned a real estate company. I thought, what am I doing?
Hey, I feel you. I didn't even have my license yet when I owned one. Kind of the same path.
Yeah. What am I doing? So, I thought, well, so this agent came in, Gary Carnes, matter of fact, and I told him, man, I said, I'm sweating at this deal. He said, "Why don't you come over and talk to Gary Griffin?" That's where he was working. And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, come on over." And so I called him and set up an appointment, went over, talked to Gary Griffin. He had about an 800 square foot freestanding office building with about 4 agents in it. And we talked a little bit, and he said, "You go home and think about it, and I'll think about it, and then we'll get together." I said, "Okay." So we both were okay with that, so I went to work over there.
That's awesome. And what year was that?
That was probably 81.
All right. That's awesome.
81, and then, and I mean to tell you, there was like 4 or 5 of us in that whole office, and we just did things the hard way. We'd go out up and down, knocking on doors and handing out cards and stuff that I'd never even heard of before.
Right. All just this. So what's interesting is the prospecting activities aren't that much different. They're just a little bit tweaked. It's still a people business. It's
Still
how
a
do you get
people
in front
business.
of people, and the more the merrier. But it's just times have changed the way you do it.
So and I got to think. I thought I got to figure out how to get my niche in this business somehow. So I started. We had just started a multi-list, and we had a little thin book. There was $100,000 house that had nothing any higher than that one in Springdale, and the whole get up. And anyway, so I looked to see kind of what was selling. I got a sold book, and I thought, well, that's where I need to go. What's selling? You know?
Get in that market.
Yeah. And then I decided I'd learned how to do FHA and VA loans, and nobody here did them. One little office here in Springdale would actually do a FHA or a VA.
So what were most of the loans at that time? Was it just conventional?
Conventional.
There was a bunch of
20-year, 30.
assumables at that time too, wasn't there? Was that a thing yet, or was that a
Well,
little down the road?
it was just starting about that time.
Gotcha.
And it was the FHA and VA and what they call bond money, which what they were secondary market loans guaranteed by FHA, VA, or a bond.
Right.
So that was that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's interesting to see it's still on the contract as a financing option.
Oh, really?
Assumable loan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loan to be assumed by and all the details. But I think a lot of people just don't ever need it, so they don't ever use it.
Well, they backed out of doing that because whenever you assume a loan, you don't assume the liability on it. It stays with the first owner, maker of that note. And everybody was pretty naive back then, didn't realize that was the
They were
deal.
just chasing rates. They weren't chasing the actual technicalities of it.
That's right.
So you and Gary took off, and then as you grow the Griffin Company, I mean, where we merged was in 2009. So
Yeah.
between 1980 and 2009, the Griffin Company was growing. You were adding great people, a lot of them that are still here today or
Yeah.
recently retired.
Yes.
You also got in the development business.
Yes.
So how did you go into that avenue of? I think, Russell, I'll tell you something. You can ride around in the car with PT, and he can look at a piece of dirt and imagine the houses out there.
Yeah.
He can picture them. So how did you get into the development piece of it? Because you've done a bunch of developments over that time too.
Well, the first 6 or 8 years, we were still fighting that interest rate, and nobody was building houses. All the builders were shut down. There was a lot of inventory sitting everywhere. And then about in 86, 87, business started picking up, and because the interest was going down.
Right.
And then it started picking up more, and I was watching the inventory out there on lots, and I said, man, we're getting low on inventory. And nobody was really fired up about doing a subdivision because of what they had just been through. And I said, there was a older fella, builder, developer, and I kind of sold his houses. He kind of took me under his wing, and he said, you need to buy that 10 acres next to me over here and do a subdivision. I thought, what? He thinks I can do a subdivision? And so sure enough, he said, I'll hold your hand. And so I went and bought the 10 acres. It was owned by Fidel Biari. Have you ever heard of that guy?
Fidel?
Yeah, Fadel. Yes, I bought the 10 acres from him and put a street down the middle of it, made 30 lots, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven,
Oh,
man.
I
I
bet.
tell you what, it was interesting. it was different than just selling, because you can really just create something.
Right.
And you learn more about the ins and outs of the engineering part and the building part, and that's what got me started.
So have most of them been in Springdale, and how many have you done?
Yeah, most of them have been in Springdale. I've done about probably 35 subdivisions.
That's awesome.
Probably the one, no doubt about it. The biggest one was one in Rogers. It was 120 acres, and it was. I got that one finished just in time for the next crash.
Oh, the Lord had His hand on you on that one. Lord holding your hand to finish that one right in time.
That's right. But anyway, I got to where I just really enjoyed the process.
It's pretty amazing being able to put that product on the ground and then see homes on it, see families out in the subdivision, see kind of what it creates. It creates lifestyle, and that's totally different part of just selling a home or selling like a multifamily or an investment or whatever. You get to see the end result where you got kids riding around on their bikes or families in their house barbecuing on the backyard. It's a whole different deal.
I love that part of it, and I love whenever people, after you get it finished, and people brag about where they live and
it's the pride of ownership.
Yeah,
You're creating that.
They love it, and I think, yeah, good. That's what I was going for.
That's awesome. It's interesting to me now, like there's a lot of people that think they want to be a developer until they start the process. And a lot of times right now, it's a lot of the municipality challenges of putting the subdivision in. It's either going through the city process or even if it's in the county. What was the process like for you when you started doing it compared to what it's like today when you go through it with the city and all that sort of thing? I know there's a lot more red tape, I'm sure, but what's the biggest difference?
At that point in time, it wasn't on fire like it is now, of course. And I decided that I was going to learn everything that the city engineers and planners knew. And I got their big old thick black book, and I focused on the zoning and what the requirements were and how thick asphalt you need and how wide does the street need to be, and I carried that book, and as far as I know, I was the only one outside of the city that had one of them. And I knew what I learned what I needed to do. I guess that's kind of what.
Yeah, you were kind of addicted to the process, so to speak.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, I've heard stories that you knew more than some of the city directors did on the book.
Well, yeah, it's. I've been accused of that a couple of times.
Hey, it's a good spot to be in. It's just knowing your business, right?
Knowing your business.
Like you were the one that had the money on the line, the bank note, all that sort of thing. You're the responsible party at the end of the day to make sure it's right.
There's no doubt about it, and it made me feel good to be able to show them where Section 3B is in the book there, and
how you're following it
yeah,
to a T.
Yeah.
So, in addition to that, you've got a construction business, so you build homes with Partners Construction. Tell us a little bit about how that got going and what are y'all doing as far as how many homes you're building a year and all that sort of thing.
That all really started in about 2008, whenever the crash hit and everybody shut down, all the builders shut down. I was sitting there with 200 lots on the ground, finished, and owed money on every one of them.
Yes, sir.
And, and part of them were that big subdivision in Rogers that I was talking about a while ago. And, I really didn't we had been pretty conservative, so we had paid a lot of stuff off as we went along, and so we were lucky there, and we had some equity in other properties. So I sat down with Gary Griffin one day. I said, there's only one way we're going to get out of this. Nobody's going to buy these lots. We're going to have to build on them ourselves. And so I hired a guy.
Just start building your way out of them?
That's right. We just started building our way through it. And just the key was to make enough to pay interest.
Right. It was a survival. It was
It
almost
was.
a survival mode to get in there. Huh?
That's right. We weren't trying to pay it off. We were just trying to make enough to pay interest.
Gotcha.
And I'm telling you, I put up a sign out there at Tuscany Subdivision, and that's a pretty nice subdivision.
It's beautiful.
$99 a square foot for those houses, what we sold them for.
You'd have people beating down the doors today. Just the market transformation from
Yes.
08, 09 when we merged to where it is today,
Yeah.
and just the difference in the way it feels and all that sort of thing. So what are y'all built? How many do y'all do today?
Oh, it just depends on, we'll probably do 15 or 20.
Oh, nice. Y'all built my house. I love it.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful home and built a great property.
Well, thank you. Don't tell anybody this, but I'm not really a builder.
You got some good people that
I got
work
good
with-
people that are building, and I trust them, and they've been working for me for a long time. I say I'm not a builder. I'm kind of the typical builder today, I guess.
Right.
And I handle all the paper. And so I tell them, I said, I want you to build this like you're building it for yourself. And I meant it then, and we didn't, and that's the way we build it.
Still that today, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So, something that a lot of people that will probably be listening to this, I hope, are realtors and
Yes.
and the public and all that sort of thing. And so one of the things that you've done over the years that's really helped you in downturns and all those different things is you've had an opportunity to buy investment properties and grow your rentals. And I think one thing a lot of people that are in this business, or even Joe Public, just thinks,
Right.
I want to buy some rental properties, and they pay for themselves, which everybody that has them knows that that's not necessarily the case. But how did you get into starting buying rental properties, and when was that? Like how far into your career were you when you bought your first rental property?
Probably a couple of years. And I did just what you had mentioned there, assumable loan. It had a FHA assumable loan on it, and there was I paid like $33,000 or $34,000, and I put like $3,000 down and assumed the loan,
Yeah.
and it was 7.25%. I even still remember that, and
You don't forget the first one.
rented it for $275 a month, and my goal was, what motivated me was, I had a couple of real young kids at home, and I thought, I'm not making enough to put one through college right now. I better start saving a little bit for that. And so that's what my goal was with buying a house and renting it and paying for it and having money when it was time for them to go to college. Then I'd have some money to sell it and pay their college.
That's awesome. And so what year was it when you bought your first one? Do you remember?
I started in 78, so it was about 1980.
Gotcha. So in 80, you buy your first one, and then you just start, well, that kind of worked a little bit. Let me go try to find another one, and then another one, and then another one, or how did that go?
Yes. I bought that one, and then the next thing I know, the next year, I bought another one, assumed the loan, paid a little down on it, and I thought, I'm going to just set a goal to buy one thing every year. You know, I've done it 2 years in a row. Now I can keep doing this.
Yeah, we got a trend. Keep it
Yeah,
going.
trend. So I bought a duplex and the next year, and then another duplex, and then Gary and myself went in partners and bought this 3 4-plexes. That's another story. But anyway, I tell you, it's one of those things. We kept that 3 4-plex. That's my prize right there in investing in real estate.
Tell us about it.
We bought 3 4-plexes and paid $60,000 a piece for them, and we kept them for several years.
Hold on, think about that right now. $15,000 a door.
Yeah,
Think about that today.
that's right. And they were right in a row, and we kept them rented, paid for them, and then in the early, I can't remember what it was now. Yeah. Anyway, the market was good, and we had an opportunity to sell them, and we sold them, and I did my first 1031 exchange with that money, and I bought 40 acres over on Watkins Avenue.
What's at Watkins Avenue now, for those that don't know?
Well, there's Arvest Ballpark there now, and the community college there. There's soon going to be a big apartment complex over there, and it all started with
Those 4.
that's right.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
That is absolutely
and
amazing.
it's the best deal I ever got into.
That's great. That's so awesome.
So,
What do you think? So when you got into starting buying them, did you ever have to sell one of them whenever the kids went off to college, or by that time they were paying for themselves and you had added one a year?
yes. Well, actually, after a few, we decided we'll start building some. And so we built some apartments, the Cambridge apartments over there.
Oh yeah, right by Tyson.
Yeah, we built those, built some duplexes around, and then built those orchard apartments, and that kind of gets you in the game real quick.
That's awesome. It's interesting because that's how me and Brandon really had started back in 2000, I guess 2002. We started buying rental properties together. And for us, when the downturn hit in 2008, that's what kept us in business. Like
Yeah.
that was, we wound up having to sell some of them just to keep the doors open in the real estate business at the time. And it was unbelievable the difference that made at the time. But we were the ones that were taking the chance to buy them early on and kind of pushed them along.
Well, and the same thing happened whenever in '08, and I had vacant land. That's the first thing I sold because there wasn't any income coming in on that. So,
So when we merged in 2009, let's talk a little bit about
Okay.
that. So I talked about this the other day when Russell and I were visiting about kind of our story and my story about how I got in the business and all that. But I was joking that there's some ships that don't float, and a lot of times it's a partnership. And our partnership has just kind of been a gift for us, a real blessing for me personally. And I know Brandon would say the same thing, that whenever we merged in 2009, it was 4 very different personalities kind of coming together. So what do you remember about when we all sat down at the table up at Arvest, the 4 of us, and where we are from 2008, I guess, when that conversation started, to where we are now in 2026?
well, we were unlikely candidates to be a partner. I'll be honest with you, because we never considered a franchise. We were independent, and we were proud of it, and we thought this is the only way to go. Blah blah blah. We just then when the opportunity came up with you guys, and it was a franchise. It wasn't so much the franchise that we were sold on. It was you and Brandon that we were sold on. And we trusted you in your opinion on that, and thought, if these guys believe in it and they put their money on the line, you already had a franchise. We didn't have one.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm willing to go with that. It took a while, but probably the smartest thing I did, or we did, I should say.
I remember we were sitting at the table the first time, I think, and I said, Russell, I said, Philip, I think he asked me, he said, well, how are you going to get out of this franchise? I said, we're not. And he pushed his chair back, stood up. I said, hold on a second. Sit down. Hold on just one second. Let's talk about this. And then we went through it all, and then you went and saw it, and you're like, oh, well, we can't recreate all this.
Yeah.
and that's kind of the benefit of it. Once you get down the road, once you kind of open your eyes to the opportunity a little bit, it's just a different mindset shift.
I remember that day like it was yesterday. and I thought, I'm going to test them and see if there's really a way that we could get out of doing this. And now I had that plan from day one.
It was rehearsed.
Yeah.
Hey, Marianne, watch this. Does this look good?
That's right. And I remember there wasn't a lot of discussion between me and Gary.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Well, I remember Brandon and I were talking about this the other day. A lot of the conversations, we had a couple conversations, all of us. Then a lot of it was I'd be over at Gary's house, and then we'd all get together once and then kind of work through the details. But it's been the biggest blessing for us, just because we were at a time right at the backside of the crash. We were both at an opportunity. We both knew we needed something, and we all came together kind of the right time where it was just a unifying of different deals. Like y'all had lived through a bunch of different markets. Always joke. Gary used to always joke with us that we were ready, fire, aim, and he would aim till the target moved.
Yeah.
And so, like, putting that together really was good, because it gave us an opportunity to grow. It gave us an opportunity to learn from both of our past experiences, but then kind of mesh ideas and all that stuff, and it's taken us really to where we are today. It's been an awesome blessing.
It has been for us too.
Yeah, it's interesting from a manager / agent third party to see, the four of y'all kind of come together. And no offense, but it's almost like the two old guys with all the experience and the two new guys with all the technology.
Well, that's exactly what it was.
But to see y'all, individually is like, I know in this area, I'll go to one guy or the other, but and nobody gets offended that I didn't ask them.
It's the right person for the right job, right?
Yeah.
No, but something else. It's interesting because you've got some pretty top tier titles in the state. I'm going to pick on your developer. You're a small business owner or large business owner, I would argue. The Springdale Revitalization Commissioner, Arkansas Department of Transportation. I'm leaving something else off.
Airport Commissioner.
X&A. I mean, number one, how do all those kind of breed together? And then, how do you do all of it?
It really did. I just worked into it. I got in the real estate business, and then the next step was getting in the development business. Well, what do you do when you develop? You work with engineers, you scrape the ground, you put down streets and sidewalks and pipes, sewer and water and all that, and then the next step up is, you learn about the zonings and all of that, and then pretty soon, people around town at the city find out that you know quite a bit about it, and then a position comes up on the Regional Planning Commission. The mayor calls me, Philip, you want to serve on that Springdale?
I need some help.
Yeah. And sure, I'll do that. And then I do that for a while and keep doing the development. And then one day in 1992, Bobby Hopper calls me, the tunnel man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The tunnel man.
Yeah. He called me. I knew him. He was a friend of my dad's. And he said, hey, they got a new way of funding these transit, Razorback Transit, Ozark Transit, and we're going to have a kind of a committee set up. And do you want to serve on that? And I said, well, yeah, I'll do that, And so that was a step up from the regional planning, because we managed the money for Arkansas from Ozark Transit and Razorback Transit. And then after a few years, they streamlined it and started sending the money directly to them. And then a position came up on XNA in 1999. And the mayor, Van Hoos, asked me if I'd be interested in serving on that. Each one of the cities, the Big Five, had 2 members, and each county had 2. So there's 14 of us on there, and I've been on there ever since.
Yeah, you've been on there since day one of XNA, right?
Well, actually,
when they started the board piece.
Well, actually, it was it had been operating a couple of years, but it wasn't long after it started.
Well, I would love for us to have another sit down in the future and talk about Airport and Highway Commission, because I think that's something that's super interesting that ties right into kind of what me and Russell have an idea for where this podcast can go, because what all has changed between where XNA started, where XNA is today, where the highways and all the infrastructure is today, and where it's going. I think that's something that everybody.
It's really interesting. It was really interesting, and to learn how things get done.
Yeah, I'd love to sit down and have another conversation about that.
I'd love to do that.
We'll do it. Let me ask you this. So in closing, I appreciate you taking the time to sit with us. If there's somebody out there that's thinking about getting the business, thinking about getting in the real estate world, what advice would you give somebody to get going to be successful long-term in this career?
Well, I just say you have to be confident. You need to go somewhere where you get trained. Going to a real estate school is only about 10% of the job. It gets your license, but then you're just dangerous. But you need to
That's good.
You need to learn how to sell. That's the main thing, and so I'd say, and be ready to work hard. Set goals, and start early and work late.
Yep. This business is dressed in overalls and drives a truck. It's not in a suit and driving a Mercedes, right? I think that's
right.
The misconception a lot of people have, that, I'm just going to go sell my house to my aunt, but really it's the people business. It's a relationship business, and I'd say that's the part of it that you're world class at, and you model it well at being a good people person and a good representative for us and for our company, and I can't thank you enough. So I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and share a little bit about your story, and look forward to having another conversation soon.
Let's keep doing this.
I like it.